What's up everybody, my name is Kason and welcome back to another War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius video. Today is my ultimate guide to casting time, and if you want to maximize your mages or do some work with your Dragoon waifus, I think this video is for you, so let's get into it. So the first thing that we need to do today is clear up some confusion. I think some people are using a couple of terms interchangeably, which isn't correct. And those two terms are casting time and casting speed. Those two terms are different, and I'm going to break down exactly what both of those mean. First of all, for casting time, the technical term is actually ability activation time. And for casting speed, it's ability activation speed. Now I understand that those can be somewhat of a mouthful, so from now on we will just use casting time and casting speed, but just know that those two things are different. Essentially what casting time is, it is a number that by default starts at 1000. And the biggest thing that you need to know about it is that when you have a unit who casts a spell, once this artificial number reaches 1000, that cast now goes through. So essentially, if Skahal were to walk up and he uses Thundaga, all of a sudden he shows the little casting animation. There is some math, some numbers behind the scenes that are going on, and as soon as that artificial number hits 1000, then he will officially cast that spell. Now, the thing about this activation time is that it starts at 1000 by default, but this can be something that we can lower and improve on. As we can see here, the lower number of activation time means it's faster. So if we were to reduce the activation time from 1000 to, let's say, 800 or 600, this would theoretically make our spell go off faster. This is really crucial because a lot of times in PvP fights, when you're using a spell, if your person is sitting there casting for too long, they could be killed or interrupted or a number of things before their ability even happens. So it's really important that we get casting time as low as possible. Now, as we can see here, like I said, if the time is reached, the spell is cast, and this can be decreased with a number of different ways. You can decrease with vision cards, espers, character passives, all sorts of different things. Even some characters actually have skills that can reduce activation time. So again, this left side is the side that we can really improve on. The second thing that we have to go over is ability activation speed or casting speed. Now, this differs depending on what skill you're using, so it is not all the same for one unit. A unit could have multiple different casting speeds depending on what skill they're using. The higher number is faster, so this is the opposite of the casting time, where the lower number is faster. Again, the speed is based on the unique skill, and the only way to increase casting speed is to level it up. So when you go to your ability board for a unit and you level up a skill up to level 20, that is the only way to increase the casting speed. Another thing real quickly I want to iterate, and this is going to make a lot more sense on the next slide, is spell ticks. Now essentially what a spell tick is an artificial construct of time within the game. So if I say one tick, that's one basically set amount of time within the game that goes by. 2 ticks is 2 of that same amount of time that goes by. You don't need to know the exact amount of time that goes through. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but what you need to know is how many ticks it takes for your spell to go off. Now here's where we break into this. So tick 0. A lot of people don't even say this term. This term, I don't even know if it exists. This is just in my head how I think about it. If it has 0 ticks, no time goes by. These are your instant cast spells. So if you have somebody like Ibarra with a Wailing Storm, where she doesn't wait at all and she instantly just casts that, that is a 0 tick spell. Every other spell in the game that has some sort of casting speed to it is anywhere between tick 1 and tick 5, assuming that you have that skill to level 20, which you should. A tick 1 is essentially a instant cast spell. The only exception to this would be as if there is another unit who is basically ready to take their turn at the same time you took your turn when you cast that spell. If that's the case, you will start the casting animation, they will take their turn, and then yours will go through. But except for that very rare circumstance, your cast will go off before any other person takes their turn, because tiebreakers actually go to spells over units. Down here, tick 2, 3, 4, and 5, all this really means is the higher amount of ticks, the longer it takes for your spell to go off, putting your unit in more danger the longer that it takes. So the next thing is default casting time. And like I said before, the amount of casting time by default for units is 1000. So if you don't have any way to decrease it, what it basically means is this artificial number that we have needs to get up to 1000 before before the spell actually goes off. So I've got a couple of examples here. Aerith has two different spells. One is an attack, Sorcerer's Storm, and one is a heal, Holy Prayer. Now, by default, Sorcerer's Storm has a 240 cast speed. Holy Prayer has a 400 cast speed. They both have 1000 cast time. Again, this is something that's more tied to the character, not to the skill. So, what this means, when Aerith walks forward to use a skill, and we'll do Sorcerer's Storm as the first example, you're going to input Sorcerer's Storm, and instantly she will start the casting animation. Now, 1 tick of time will go by, and depending on what your cast speed is, that's how much value goes up. So when she starts this cast, it always starts at 0, no matter what. Your casting speed basically tells you, okay, how much up do we go from 0 trying to get to our final cast time. So it goes up 240 in 1 tick. Tick 2 goes up to 480 because it's again just adding 240. Tick 3 goes up to 720. Tick 4 goes up to 960. And tick 5 would technically bring us to 1200. But as soon as you get to 1000, whichever tick that's in, that is when the ability will go off. That is when it'll cast. So I've marked cast here because there's no point in saying that it gets to 1200 because it just never does. Once it gets to 1000, that's the tick that it casts on. The other spell over here, for example, is a 400 cast speed. So by default, without taking any sort of casting time down on the character, it is a tick 3 cast by default. So you can see this one is a tick 5 cast, this is a tick 3 cast. This one is going to be much faster just because there's only 3 artificial time ticks that go by before this cast is actually performed. Now, we can reduce this pretty significantly to make these spells come by faster. So for reducing casting time, one of the things that we want to think about is we want to think about breakpoints. And what I mean by that, by coming back to this last slide, these are the numbers that are breakpoints. If we were to get our cast time down from 1000 down to 960 or less, or 720 or less, those are the breakpoints to make it a faster cast, because it would then be tick 4 or tick 3. In this specific example, if our number was 740 or our number was 780, they would be the exact same. 740 and 780 are the same because all that matters is, did you get to that next breakpoint? So coming back to this slide, we always want to aim for breakpoints. And the other thing about casting time that can be a little confusing is that there's 2 basically categories of casting time. There's attack ability activation or attack casting, non-attack ability activation or non-attack casting. All that you really need to think about is, does the ability do damage, right? Is it an attack, or is it some sort of like heal or re-raise or something like that? And that's how we split up that category. This vision card, for example, because you're going to see this terminology in the game, gives 100 attack ability activation time down and 100 non-attack ability activation time down. So it gives both. Now, we're going to go to this next slide. There's a number of things in the game that can reduce our casting time. These are all vision cards that do so. This one right here works for anybody in the game as a party effect. It will do attack and non-attack down 100. This one is a water party doing the exact same thing. This one is only on the unit holding it, but for lightning does 100 attack. This one is for anybody for the unit holding it, 100 attack activation time down. And the last one is for light self, so only light units can hold it, but self 100 attack and 100 non-attack. I may have missed a vision card, but I believe this is all of them. The other thing that we can actually do to reduce casting time is there are 2 espers in the game that actually have attack ability activation time down on their board. The only one in the game currently is Siren, but very soon, in just about a week and a half, we're going to get the FF10 rerun, and Valifor is going to come out. He actually has 200 attack ability activation time down on his board. So either one of these espers is another way to reduce that time. So if we come here, coming into the reducing casting time section, This is basically a sample build of, or not even a full build, but what we could do on Aerith in order to get her casting time down. And there's no perfect way to build every single unit, but these are some things to think about when you are building units in order to get your spells to come off faster. Now, because she has Sub-Time Mage, she has a speed cast passive that she can equip. If we do this, this is going to drop her casting time down 250 for both attack and non-attack spells. She could also hold that vision card that we showed earlier, the more one, the guidance from the stars. This will drop at 100 each. And then if she holds Siren as her Esper, you know, she could run water attack, slash resistance, and ability activation time down. That's a pretty good setup for her. And it would drop it down another 200. So essentially the way the math works in this is we always start with our 1000 default, and we try and figure out what our total cast time is. So we start at 1000. We subtract the 250 that we got from Speedcast, we subtract the 100 from Guidance from the Stars, and we subtract the 200 from Siren Esper board. So again, all of these in the parentheses are the things we're subtracting. So 1000 minus 550 total equals 450. So our casting time is no longer 1000, it's 450 for attack spells. For the non-attack spells, it's going to be the same thing, except we didn't get 200 from the Siren Esper board. That only affects attack spells. That's very important. A lot of people don't realize that. So this will actually be 650. So now we can come back in here, and now this is the same two spells that we used earlier. And remember, the first time we did this, our Sorcerer's Storm was a tick 5 spell. That's a very long time to wait for that spell to go through. There's a decent chance that somebody could move out of the way. Aerith could die in that time so that she doesn't get her spell off. It's crucial to get this down. Now, with all those things that we equipped to her, her cast time is no longer 1000, it's 450. So essentially, with one tick, she gets up to 240, and tick 2, she would get up to 480, which is past the 450 cast time, allowing her to cast tick 2. This is a much faster spell and a much better range, and if you were trying to use her as an attacker. The other side here, the Holy Prayer, is a very fast spell because it has a 400 cast speed. And again, our support or our non-attack ability activation time is 650. So again, tick 1 brings us to 400. Tick 2 would bring us to 800, which is past our 650 mark, allowing us to cast on tick 2. So the other thing that ties with ability activation time is CT. CT is not casting time. They're not the same thing. That is a very complex thing that I will cover in another video. But I thought it was crucial today that I go over casting time with you guys because of my next video that I'm making, which is going to be a Skahal Ultimate Guide. I hope to see you guys in that next one. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. But until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day.